My best friend, who I'll call Michael for privacy, was coming back to town from college in the summer of 2018. I was also in college, but stayed in town for my studies. Being that we would only see each other a few days throughout the year, we would take a couple days off and rent an Airbnb or hotel, hang out, party, catch up on life, all that sort of stuff. We both lived with our parents still, so we couldn't do much at home. Anyway, we found a little cottage nestled in the woods, with a cozy fireplace and a great view. It seemed like the perfect spot for a weekend of relaxation and catching up. Plus, it was way cheaper than any of the other Airbnbs and hotels. It was located about 2 hours from where we were. On Friday morning, I drove over to Michael's place and picked him up, then started heading to the Airbnb. We talked and caught up, but if I'm being honest, it was kind of a boring drive. The roads were empty, and we only passed through one town on the way. When we arrived, though, the cabin looked really nice, from the outside at least. We got our bags from the car and opened the front door with a key code. The inside was good, looking just as it did in the pictures, but it wasn't very clean. There were dirty footprints across the floors, looking like someone had been wandering in the forest and didn't take their shoes off. The bedding seemed to have been washed though, which was the more important thing. We settled in and talked for a bit, then went out to wander the forest around the cabin. Both of us were big nature people, enjoying long walks and hikes. We stumbled across a path not far from the back of the cabin and followed it for a while before it ended. Not like a normal end to a path though. There was no actual point to the path. It was just a straight line through the woods with a very sudden, abrupt ending. It was a bit weird, but really we both didn't think much of it. We followed it back to the cabin as the sun was starting to set. As we got closer, I noticed Michael was looking around a lot, like he was nervous, but he was never one to be scared.
"Everything okay?"
I asked.
Yeah, I just thought I saw someone over there. It's probably nothing though."
I looked where he was pointing, but there wasn't anything to see. It was already somewhat dark by then, so there was no use in looking. When we got back, Michael took a shower and I started making some of the food we brought, but something felt off. I couldn't help but notice that there seemed to be more footprints around the house than there were before. Some of them even went right up to where our bags were, but as far as I could tell, nothing was missing. I asked Michael what he thought, but he wasn't so convinced, saying he thought the footprints were already there. We continued with our night, getting ready for bed around 10. The way the cabin was set up, there was the living room and kitchen right when you walk in, and then one bedroom that had 2 beds and a bathroom in it. We both took a bed and fell asleep. A few hours into the night, I woke to Michael whispering my name. He was calling for me, telling me to wake up. I looked over and saw him sitting up in his bed.
"What's going on?"
He pointed at the door.
"Someone's inside."
Then I heard the soft, intentional, quiet footsteps of someone walking across the cabin, right outside the bedroom door. My heart tightened up. We both sat there, listening to this person fumble around with something out there, and then he came right up to the door. There was a long moment of silence before they turned away and left the cabin. We got up and pushed some furniture against the doors, staying up the rest of the night and leaving first thing in the morning. Maybe we should have called the cops, but in our defense, we were out in the middle of nowhere and had nothing but footprints to back up our case. We got a refund on the next day, since we left early. Oddly, the owner never responded to our message about what happened. No apology or anything. They just refunded the money and said nothing. Before we get into this next story, I want to take a moment to talk about the sponsor for today's video. Aura is an all-in-one digital security service providing continuous monitoring of your personal data along with quick resolutions to help you resolve any potential threats. Along with this, Aura's apps can encrypt your Wi-Fi connection to aid in keeping your home devices secure. Personal identity and data theft is unfortunately very common now, having affected nearly 1/3 of all US citizens and continuing to affect 15 million US citizens every single year, costing billions of dollars. With Aura, you can be assured you have the greatest security and prevention. While this can all sound complicated to set up, it's actually extremely simple. I signed up for myself in less than 5 minutes, and after signing up, I was able to have Aura scan and remove my personal data from all over the internet, including scam centers, the dark web, and data brokers, by just clicking a few buttons. These companies make a profit off of your private information, so removing your personal data is extremely important. After this, Aura set up continuous monitoring on all of my data, ensuring any issues can be resolved rapidly by notifying me the instant something comes up. I am genuinely impressed with this service, and the peace of mind it brings me is above everything else. By using aura.com/whispered or scanning the QR code, you can get a completely free 14-day trial, allowing you to see if your personal data has been leaked, remove your data from multiple large platforms, and securely monitor your personal identity. I strongly suggest everyone to try it out and keep your identity secure. I was on a solo vacation to Oregon this year toward the end of winter. I had some extra vacation days at work, so I was just trying to use them up. The city I stayed by was small, but I really wasn't there for that. I wanted to be in the beautiful nature that Upper Oregon had, not in some crowded city. The small city had a few hotels, but they were strangely really expensive, which was why I went with an Airbnb. It turned out to be a decent ways away from the city too, which was a benefit in my eyes. The only downside was that it was a guest home, meaning there was a main house on the property that the owners lived in right next door. It wasn't the isolation I wanted, but it was better than being in a city. I arrived at the Airbnb late at night, tired from my long drive. The house was surrounded by a dense forest, which made it difficult to see anything beyond the faint glow of the porch light. As I approached the door, I knocked softly. The host, a friendly woman in her 40s, greeted me at the door and led me to the guest house. She gave me the key and showed me around the room, explaining how to use the various appliances and where to find extra blankets. We made a bit of small talk, where she told me that she'd lived here alone for 15 years and talked about the wildlife and everything. After she left, I settled in and made myself some food. As I sat at the kitchen table, I realized the glare from the moon was lighting up the whole house, and that's when I noticed that there were no curtains on any of the windows. It was odd, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. As I got ready for bed, I shoved an extra blanket over one of the windows to help block some of the light, but it didn't really work too well. The bed was pretty comfortable, but I had some trouble sleeping, waking up a few times because of a strange smell that the room had. I opened the window to let in some fresh air, but I'm pretty sure the smell was stained into the wood or something. I hoped I'd get used to it after a day, but I never did. In the morning, I woke up early and had a bowl of granola for breakfast. But while I packed my hiking bag, I got startled by the woman standing at the front window. She smiled and waved once we made eye contact. I opened the front door. She asked how my night was and if I had any problems. I said no to be non-confrontational, and she left. I got my bags together and drove out to a nearby hiking trail. By the time I got back to the Airbnb, it was late, maybe 9 o'clock. I pulled up the gravel driveway and started walking to the door when I saw the woman quickly walk away from behind the guest house. I stopped and waited for a second, a little weirded out, then kept walking and went inside. Nothing was out of place, so I didn't bother worrying about it. I went to bed a half hour later, not even bothering to cover the window again. But after just a couple minutes, I heard the distinct sound of a car coming down the gravel driveway. It pulled all the way up to the house and stopped. Someone got out, and I heard the woman greet them. They were whispering, standing outside still. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could tell the other person was a man from the sound of their whispers. I heard them begin walking, not into the main house, toward the guest house I was in. I opened my eyes wider and paid more attention, hearing the footsteps come closer. I looked around at all the windows frantically, feeling vulnerable like I was in a cage. Whoever was out there walked around the house slowly and stopped by the back wall. I had my eyes fixed on the window in that direction for what felt like forever, waiting for them to leave. Then, I saw the faint glow of their eyes in the corner of the window, looking back at me. I jumped up and they ran. I quickly checked out the window, seeing someone get into a truck and driving away. I immediately packed everything up and got in my car, seeing the woman come outside and try to wave me down as I drove away. I didn't stop until I got home. I don't know what happened or was happening, but something was very wrong. After a few days of thinking about it, I ended up looking into it myself, searching up the house and the woman living there. I found her Facebook account showing that she was married and had been for 15 years. I didn't find much else, but she had told me that she lived alone for 15 years, so something strange was definitely going on. It's been 4 months since, but I still think about it a lot, wondering what the woman was hiding, why the place had such a strange smell, and what the man was trying to do. I was on a quick business trip last year for work and decided to drive instead of flying. I always hated airports and planes, so I would drive any chance I got. I rented 2 Airbnbs, one on the way there and one on the way back. Everything was fine on the way up, but I can't say the same for the trip back. I arrived at the Airbnb late in the evening after a long day of traveling. As I walked around the house, I felt like something wasn't right. The decor was old-fashioned, with dark wood furniture and heavy curtains. The air was shallow, and there was a lingering smell of cigarette smoke. I looked back online, seeing that the pictures showed different furniture, and really, a whole different layout too. It was hard to tell if it was even the same house. It was, but it just looked so different. Being tired and annoyed, I brushed it off. I was just there for the night, so as long as it was a place to stay, then that was fine with me. The code on the door worked, so they must have just put up the wrong pictures or lied to get more bookings. I tossed my travel bags against the wall and showered, then got in bed and fell asleep. But in the middle of the night, I was jolted awake by a loud noise. It sounded like something had fallen over in the hallway. I sat up in bed, listening intently, but there was no other sound. I tried to go back to sleep, but my mind wouldn't let me without checking the house first. I got up and went into the hallway. It was empty. Nobody there, and nothing seeming to have fallen anywhere. I checked the other rooms just in case, but again, there was nothing. I went back to the bedroom, and as I walked in, I caught a glimpse of something moving into the bathroom. I froze. It was silent until a figure stepped out of the doorway. He was tall and thin, looking starved and feral.
"Wallet,"
he said firmly. I fearfully pointed to my bag against the wall, seeing a kitchen knife in his hand. He picked up the bag and slung it around his shoulder, then told me to go into the hallway. As I stepped back, I noticed another man standing at the end of the hallway, looking similar to the other. They both stared at me, like hungry wolves ready to attack at any moment.
"Please, just let me go,"
I said softly. The man in the hallway turned and looked at something around the corner, and my instinct took over, making me run for the front door. I got out and sprinted down the road, making it to a gas station and calling 911. The men were gone, but the cops hinted at robberies and attacks being common in the area. Seeing the neighborhood in the daytime, it was much more apparent. I'd never been there before, so I had no idea that I was staying in a bad area. I never even thought an Airbnb would be in a bad area. The most horrifying part was when I was running away. I swear, I heard more than just 2 sets of footsteps chasing me.